It's Sunday, and I am back after 2 weeks off of this gig, which really did lay me out because I was like being here every damn week. But 2 weeks ago, I went back to Detroit to visit the homies and check out to see what was going on in Michigan, which is one of the reasons we're going to talk about what we're talking about today. And of course, last week was not only my wife's birthday, but our anniversary. So there was no way to have us be here. But
happy anniversary.
We have a lot to get to. We have a lot going on in DC. We have a lot going on in the state. We have a lot going on in the city. So let's get to it and talk about it on the rotation.
Yeah, things are crazy in DC. The city is currently under essentially martial law ever since the Trump administration takeover of the police force. So, I am not going to see the plug anytime soon.
How long has this been, Kano?
This week, and there's literally hardly anything for cops to do. I mean, one, the idea that DC is just this crazy crime-ridden place just is not true on the ground. What happened was one of Elon Musk's Doge tech bros was in the wrong neighborhood, and two 15-year-old girls beat the shit out of him. And I don't know if he was in that wrong neighborhood because he was out there trying to buy some blow or what, but that was carte blanche for the home rule to be exercised and everything to get taken over, and cops literally have nothing to do. So now they're just fucking with people. The homeless. They're messing with folks who are.
What's going on? They don't want you to talk about it. No.
Well, I used to.
Why am I the only one in here?
Personally, if I saw that big balls guy on the street, I'd beat him up. I mean, just for the heck of it. And I didn't even know him that well. But let's get to the introductions, and we'll get heavier into this. My name is Gary Stein. I'm your political director and policy director here at Suncoast NORML, and our master.
Elon Musk's name.
Was that my applause?
Should I get out? Come back in. If anybody else is in here, you guys can see or hear this. We are having technical difficulties right
now. I just took her off.
Okay. Yeah, Kat's having technical difficulties. We're good.
Well, we'll get Kat back. And to my left, possibly you're right, I'm not certain, our executive director coming to us from beautiful Anne Arundel County, even though it shows the Capitol building behind him, which is a lie.
Garrett, remind me never to tell you where my safe house is, because you just love giving away my GPS coordinates on the show.
Chris, by the way, is at an undisclosed location, which anybody can find on Find My. He is our executive director, where he lives above the Beltway, hits him below the Beltway, and we're glad to have him around. And below him, our deputy director and the proprietor of, what was the name of that store you're with again? Oh, yes, Shillum. Mushroom CBD dispensary in Ybor City, where it all began. Carlos Angel Armida. And Master of Business Administration. I did mention, of course, that Chris is our Master of Public Administration, so that they get to it, and our Executive Director. And today we have another Executive Director. Today we have below me here Jamie Lowell from the great state of Michigan, and the Executive Director of Michigan NORML. How is the weather over there in Michigan now? Because it was actually warmer than usual when I was there. It was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, today it's cooling off for the first time in a while. It's been consistently 80s, if not touching on 90s, most of the summer.
Wow.
And very humid.
I've watched the Michigan program evolve over time. I visited when it was still not legal at all. Then you had medical, which is when you got your medical license, and you got your dispensary over there in Ann Arbor, which I hear is an excellent school. By the way, it's directly across from a business school. Did they ever have any problem with zoning you for that?
No, there was no problem with that because it was a city of Ann Arbor and not the campus. but that particular store is no longer in operation. Just for
Okay.
just for an update. It's a difficult place.
You told me that the Michigan medical program has been undergoing certain contractions. Let's put it that way. Do people still get medical cards at all, or is that going away too?
No, medical cards are still good, and there's still a lot of encouragement to get them for legal protections. And if somebody doesn't want to participate, especially if somebody's younger than 21, doesn't want to participate in the commercial market, or if need a particular caregiver, somebody who's independently growing, that's growing the type of things that person needs. So that part's okay. The commercial medical program has always been kind of shitty. It was done by the legislature, very restrictive. It's one of the things that prompted us to do the statewide initiative to bring in, full legalization on top of it. So there's
most
more access
states,
for people.
when they start out with a low THC program only. And
No,
then
that wasn't in Michigan. That
no,
wasn't.
it didn't happen in Michigan.
Okay.
And then they segue to a medical program, and then they segue hopefully into an adult use program. Exactly how did Michigan do it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was a few rounds at. There's always been like this decent group of activists working together here, and different eras and generations of them. And there's been a couple of rounds of statewide attempts at doing petition drives and stuff, and came up short. But each one of those times, spending a year and a half, 2 years going around the state, talking to people about it, even though the signatures aren't there, a lot of information is given, and some more awareness is achieved. And there was some kind of somewhat secretive polling that was done in 2007, and the Marijuana Policy Project thought that there was a good opportunity to come in for medical. So they kind of kept it on the down low and got the signatures, funded it, let it go through the process without really like doing a huge campaign or advertising much, just kind of let it do its thing. And it passed in every single county in Michigan. That's the only time that's ever happened. So we demonstrated some stuff with that particular medical approach. And that's a good system. That has a caregiver system where the medicine is grown at people's homes, if not for themselves, for other people. And then you have tens of thousands of small gardens throughout the state instead of just a few big ones that could be vulnerable to lots of issues. So we really liked that particular program.
And did the medical program have home grow?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where all the cannabis was grown. Either somebody would grow it for themselves, or they would get a caregiver who could grow that still happens now, for up to 5 patients. And
so
themselves.
Not done to the legislature, but it was done via the petition and the ballot process.
That part was, the MMA was done through the ballot process, as was the adult use law too. The only thing that was done through, a lot of things have been done through the legislature, but the major program done through the legislature was medical commercial.
Okay.
And that one has a lot of problems because of that.
So
one of the issues in Florida is our Supreme Court, a very conservative Supreme Court, by the way, has adopted this test that a ballot initiative has to be a single issue. And so anytime we've attempted to put a ballot initiative forward that addresses both legalization and growing your own, they've essentially struck it down. And so every ballot initiative that we've seen, at least from the corporate cannabis side that tends to be well funded, is just for a legalization framework for the existing medical marijuana treatment centers. And in Florida, we've had a separate court cases where we had a patient sue all the way up to the Supreme Court. He won in the 2 lower courts, lost at the Supreme Court over the right to actually grow based on our 2016 medical marijuana amendment that we adopted. So because that amendment was very specific, basically saying that you could use the whole plant, but the courts basically said, the MMTCs can use the whole plant, we can't. And so that's where we're at right now in Florida, is that the last initiative was struck down in 2024 over legalization because there was some testing done by the DeSantis administration, and they were able to chip away just a few percentage points based on the focus group testing of using talking points that we've actually used in the past. That it's a corporate cannabis petition, doesn't give you the right to grow at home, even though they have no intention of ever giving us home grow rights. They use the same talking points, and they were able to help chip away enough percentage points to defeat the petition. Because in Florida, even if you get a majority, that doesn't matter. You got to get 60% of the vote in order to actually win a petition in Florida. So shout out to the voters in Michigan, every county. That's impressive.
Yeah, that's for medical. The full adult didn't get quite as good a return, but it was still pretty good. It's a lot of support here. We still battle against a lot of forces, though, trying to advantage themselves, big money interests and that type of stuff. It's a hassle here, but
you live in Ann Arbor, and I know that you know where all my old neighborhoods where I used to hang out. I was going to the Hash Bash at the very beginning when John Sinclair was there and all that bit, and everything was starting out. And now you're in charge of the Hash Bash. There he is.
I am. And you bring up an interesting thing. I was kind of telling these guys before, if it's cool, I'll give an update on what's going on with that. So in the 90s, and the Hash Bash has been going on since 1972. In the 90s, there was a effort by the university to stop it. And activists, Rich Burkett, Adam Brook, the NORML group at the time, and ACLU jumped in to fight back. And there's another event that takes place in the Diag. This year is the 5th year, and it's called EntheoFest, and it's for like a similar kind of design, but it's for broader plant medicines, mushrooms, etc. This group has also gotten the city of Ann Arbor to make September EntheoFest and Fungus Awareness Month. And
Fungus Awareness Month, I love that.
Yeah, and it's called something similar to that. I don't know the exact title, but something like that. And then the University of Michigan's been doing a lot of research on psilocybin and other things, and many of those researchers were scheduled to show up at the Diag. This would be next month, September 21st. Main coordinator there, a guy named Jim Salame, and this is always in conjunction with a student group. In this case, it's SAP, Students Association for Psychedelic Studies. And for the first time in years, got a denial for a permit for next month, citing very similar reasons as they were in the 90s that prompted the law challenges and all that kind of stuff. So I work with them. There's main people on it, but I work with them, and they kind of work with me also with Hash Bash, where I take the lead, kind of a thing. And we submitted an appeal, and we're waiting to get word on that. But we're preparing to file an injunction, exactly what they did in the 90s, to mandate a judge to give us the permit. It's a free speech issue. It's also it's also contrary to their own policy. And it's history repeating itself, and it's very strange, but that's where we are. They had the Palestinian protests on the Diag during last summer, and there was some fallout from that, from the university and how they want to do policy and that type of thing. And we think there might be some connection to that approach to policy on the Diag from the experience that they had with that. It's uncertain.
Well, I can tell you in 78, there were Iranian protesters protesting the Shah being involved, whom we actually put into power in Iran. And so they were right there at the Hash Bash on the periphery. Most of them were wearing pieces of cardboard with eyes cut out as masks, so they wouldn't get identified in their own country, have their families get hurt. Sure. But this kind of thing happens at college campuses all the time. I've never seen a repression of free speech on campus like we're getting right now. You might not agree with everybody there. I didn't always agree with the Iranians who were protesting at that time, and may or may not agree with the Palestinians, although I totally disagree with the way Israel was handling it. But that's another topic altogether. But Ann Arbor has always been a place for free expression, and I was grateful for that when I went to the Hash Bash back in the mid and late 70s. Although I did get paraquatted in 1978, but that was another issue altogether. That wasn't anything under control. But was under control was that you had what was it, a 25% fine if they decided to arrest you for smoking in open air situations?
Yeah, it was $5, then it moved up to $25 in the 90s. Yeah.
That's what it turned out to be. So Michigan has been somewhat of an open atmosphere, and Florida was too, because we were also at the height of in the 1980s where they first had that program that allowed the government to give cannabis to people who they felt were qualified. And of course, Bush shut that program down because there was too many people applying for it. And one of the last surviving members of that program, Irv, is still here and still enjoying life with actually some of the worst cannabis out of Ole Miss that you could ever taste in your life. But that's another story altogether.
You know, if you talk to them, the Mississippi State or wherever it's grown, Ole Miss is they've expanded on the different types that they grow to expand on some research that's going on. I'm just wondering if they've upped the game on what they send out to Irv. And I think there's like 2 or 3 people left from that whole thing, but just wondering if they've changed it up at all.
Last time I saw it now, and when we talked to Sue, who does the research over there in Arizona State, she said the stuff that they were giving her for her research for veterans was freeze-dried, moldy, ground. Yeah,
still bad. Well, they grew some new stuff, so I was hoping that maybe they upped the game for those couple of recipients still, but apparently not.
Well, we'll have to get Sue on the show and find out exactly where it stands right now. But getting that back to the Michigan program, it was fascinating that you were able to get it through on a public ballot, and the legislature was actually the ones making the regulations that made the commercial program not as successful as the creation of the medical program. And did that not also happen with
the separation there, though, is the adult use program is a lot more successful than the medical commercial program, but it's separate from the original medical program, which is the caregiver system, where all of it's just done in their home. There's no commercial component to it.
We'd love to have home grow here. That the problem was we couldn't get it on the same ballot initiative as adult use. And so therefore they use that to put a wedge in our population and make everybody who said it's home grow or no grow. So therefore they said no go rather. So they said, all right, we're not going to vote for the adult use program either. And that essentially killed it, along with people reminding folks that we currently have an oligopoly of sorts with truly basically controlling the market. And they're the ones putting the 25 grand out. And they know what you know, in that a lot of times when it comes to profit, despite the excise tax that we have to pay, kind of like tariffs, basically it's more profitable for the business. And medical is not as profitable of a business. And so therefore, although it is much better for those who need stronger stuff, sometimes more dedicated stuff as far as profiles and things of that sort, medical is dying in Michigan because of the fact it's not as profitable. That's basically what you were telling me before?
The commercial program, yeah. It's not as profitable. It's a lot of extra restrictions and regulations that make it difficult to.
Right now, you say they are working on mushrooms and psychedelics in the state of Michigan. I mean, this is something that Carlos has been interested in because he has a whole different company itself that works with mushrooms, and he's been having a hell of a time getting his product. They keep on coming over and red tagging his merchandise, which I'm sure thrills him to death. Carlos, tell us about what you've been going through lately.
I mean, the red tagging was done because of the Amanita muscaria. It wasn't done because of any type of like psilocybin mushroom or anything like that. But you know, the issue that I had was really with our Department of Agriculture, basically saying that Amanita muscaria was is poison, and because it's not approved by the FDA, and I'm telling people to eat it, that I'm poisoning people. So.
And the balls it takes for the Commissioner of Agriculture to say that to you when his egg farm is literally putting out salmonella and having to do recalls,
Yeah, there's been nobody that's been put into the hospital because of my products. They just kind of assume, I guess. I don't know. The idea is they found a mycologist that was willing to say it was poison, I think.
And he also last week also came up with somebody who said that kratom is killing people too, so they're pulling that off the market.
I mean, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of legal drugs and such, but when I was forced to go to court-ordered rehab for weed, there were a lot of people I met who had opium addictions who were telling me that kratom tea was helping them. with coping with their withdrawal symptoms, their addiction. So the fact is that oftentimes when we find any type of substance that the powers that be, regardless of what party's in charge of the government, can't make tax dollars off of it, they'll declare it illegal.
So the thing about kratom in Florida is, and it actually has to do with the Robert Kennedy recently came out with, but it's not kratom that's illegal in Florida or being pulled off the shelf. It's a very specific kratom extract that's like super strong, and it's called 7-OH, right? And in my business, I've never carried kratom. And I agree with you, Kano. There's some medicinal aspects to it. But I've always been very scared to carry kratom because there are some dangerous aspects to it. And I'm not prepared to, kind of handle that with my customer base. But I mean, if you're getting off of drugs, if you're in an extreme amount of pain and you don't want to take the pain medicine that's being prescribed to you, great, take kratom. That's going to be wonderful for your health. But the idea is that there's now pills at gas stations that have the strength of morphine.
I've always had an aversion to buying drugs at gas stations.
Yeah,
for real. Like stay in their lane kind of thing. But I am curious because I didn't really pay attention to this in Michigan, because here smoke shops have quadrupled in numbers across the state since the loophole came out that allows folks to go ahead and sell THCA and gummies with Delta 9 derived from hemp at less than 0.3%, et cetera, by dry weight and all that bit. Have the number of smoke shops increased in Michigan, or is the adult program basically covering that part of the market?
Yeah, I don't think they haven't gone up incredibly because of that. There are some people that view their business like that and take advantage of similar loopholes. There's some specific Michigan laws that allow the commercial sales of those things to be, at least through the regular system, not allowed. I don't really know exactly where it stands right now, but the other stuff's like totally available all the time and it's cheap. So there's not really a market void that needs to be made up.
My idea is that smoke shops double in amount because of a restricted medical marijuana system, and all of a sudden the hemp market's able to come and take play there, right? And Jamie, it seems like you're to get into Michigan system, it seems like you're drawing a line in the sand here, I guess you could say, about with your medical program. There seems to be an at-home medical program where people are growing and people are taking care of things in their home, and there seems to be a program where it's commercial, and companies are coming in and trying to capitalize off of the whole medical program. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a pretty robust system. I don't think hemp stores can really survive in a place like Michigan. Are there any hemp stores at all?
I know there's people that do that thing that you're discussing, like kind of like have that philosophy of this is THCA or that kind of stuff. But I don't. It's not really that normal of a thing, So.
Gary's over there talking about head shops and hemp and all that, and you're like, oh well, we got real weed.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, that's how I look at it. You guys were talking about the petition thing, where the Supreme Court decides that you can't have legalization and home grow. Like that is such a nitpicky distinction.
Yeah. Man. Well, welcome to Florida, dude.
Yeah,
welcome to Florida, because I mean they make it harder to do things every single year. When medical marijuana came around, we didn't need that many signatures. We didn't. People were paying like I think $1 per signature, and you could have several issues on one ballot. Then I think it was like the year after they changed this to the single subject rule, which just made it impossible to pass legalization and home grow. And then people don't understand fucking politics in general, much less Floridians understanding any type of politics at all, right? and the complexity of state politics, right? And then you get people like Gary was talking about who are like, oh, well, if it doesn't have home grow in it, then I'm not voting for it. But you can't have both things in the same ballot.
It's
And
hard for people
you still get a felony for 20 grams or more in Florida without passing legalization. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to vote for it because it doesn't have home grow. And I'm also going to still let people go to jail for less than an ounce of weed for 5 years.
Yeah, the idea, when people get really passionate about this and learn a lot about it and know how to overcome a lot of the objections and common, misunderstandings of cannabis and all that kind of stuff, they don't understand politics doesn't run by logic or by what's true or anything like that. And then getting an incremental move when you can grab it is often, there's lines there and there's distinctions, the devil's in the details, et cetera. But it's hard for people to go, why would we just do that when we should be, doing this? I've seen that all over the place here in Michigan too. And I get it. It's hard to like understand that this little incremental gain is a win at that moment.
So you from where I'm sitting, it seems like the Michigan system has like kind of the best of both worlds, right? And maybe I can't say that, but judging on like the answer to the question that I'm about to ask. But is there any merit to the commercial side of things? Like, is there anything that you would say that is good for people in Michigan at all that comes from that? Or is it just all home grow?
No, there's a lot of stuff that's good with the commercial side of things. It generates revenue that helps things out. The market's struggling right now for the businesses, but the consumers are really enjoying it. I know that Gary was just in Michigan and got to see, actual prices and quality of product and things like that. That particular place is, there's a few places that do what's called deli style, where you can actually like look at the buds, smell it and stuff before you decide to purchase it. And then it's like ridiculously cheap,
It honestly, it looks like a hemp store.
And it's like the consumers are winning out. In the MRTMA, it addressed hemp, it addressed adult use, it addressed commercial and home grow, and it had individual rights and commercial stuff, spelled out in that single law. And that was something that many of us said the same things. If you don't have homegrown, then it's not really legalization. So we're not going to do that. Fortunately, we didn't have to deal with that. We almost did. One of those oligarchy type attempts in Ohio took place. And I forgot what year it was now, but it was before we ran one of ours. And it lost. People of Ohio wanted legalization, but that lost. That might have been where there's a line. That might have been so entrenched into this big money interest commanding everything that there's no way to peel it out reasonably. And a lot of people were scared of that. But I'm happy that they turned that down, because that would have empowered that same thing to come into Michigan. They were looking at us next, and we're still fighting against people like that here. When, they make moves all the time. There's a few things coming up legislatively that are in need of attention, or else it's going to hurt the program that we have now.
Well, when we first got adult use, the legislature went in and automatically started making all sorts of regulations, and they allowed everybody to opt out via municipality. And even though it passed in all the counties, you still had municipalities who opted out.
The local option was part of the law, so that was built in. It wasn't like that just got decided after the fact. Some things about the local option were incorrectly interpreted, that the locals had to like specifically prohibit cannabis activity in order to stop it from coming in. That was never a real thing, but somehow that got interpreted to be what was necessary. The real thing that screwed things up at first, in my opinion, the department that got formed to run this, was empowered to do some things in order to make it work right. We had envisioned more of a rubber stamp type thing, like as long as all these criteria are met, then they're in, and that's it. You just need to formalize it. But they grabbed a lot of extra power, and that was also, I think, due to the big money interests. These are a bunch of bureaucrats that don't really know how to do anything with cannabis, don't know anything about it, and are doing something completely new. And they took advice and were influenced by big money interests and stuff. And one of the things that was cemented in the MRTMA was to make it a 5-year span where the most that any cultivator could have is 10,000 plants. But early on, when there's supply issues, the department decided that they could use their ability to change things to make it work better. And they cut that out, and they let these big money interests that were in already have as many plants as they wanted. And they, got up to a shit ton. And then we were flooded again. This whole thing, in a lot of other states that you look at, nobody really knows how to do it. The pendulum swings back and forth between saturation and being low on inventory. So right now we're at a completely saturated time, and the consumers get to benefit from it, but it's really struggling. And that was one of the big things that set things off in a bad direction right off the bat.
I know when they allowed really inexpensive cultivation licenses, Oregon suddenly got so saturated with cultivation that they had, what was it, 5 pounds per person who lives in the state of Oregon that was actually grown, which I'm certain that Carlos could finish off in the weekend. But most of us would take a little bit more time. But yeah, I did notice that there was a lot of surplus, but then again, the prices are going down because the free market's actually working as far as that's concerned.
Well, Oregon did the moratorium, which
buy.
Oregon did the moratorium there because of that they're talking about here in Michigan, and it didn't really work there. But they're saying the same things here that they were saying there about how it's going to stabilize the market if we don't let more licensees in. And I agree with you, though, that we should be letting the market really dictate these things more than trying to artificially fix stuff, especially if we don't have a good reason to think that it's going to work. And what has happened is the big money interests that we really don't like anyway get locked in and have even less competition to deal with.
Now you've got horizontal integration in your market, correct? You don't have to have seed to sale.
We call it vertical, but yes. Yep. Same thing. Yep. Vertical integration. You could have you could process products and then bring your products and your bud right to market in your own store. You can do that.
So what is the entry requirements to get into the business in the state of Michigan?
Man,
you have to be a millionaire.
Right now, you don't. Right now, I don't know what the actual number is right now, but it's come way down. It's not really cost prohibitive. It's just it's a matter if you want to take the risk of being involved in this very difficult market right now.
In Florida, you got to dish out $140,000 plus license fee that's non-refundable. You got to be able to post several $1 million in bonds in case you do something bad. You have to have the capacity to grow like 400,000 plants. And you need to pretty much own a senator or two with political contributions.
You True Leaf almost got Matt Gates.
You can't be a black farmer either. The black farmer spot's taken up, so you can't be a black farmer either.
Now I noticed that on weed maps you see a lot of dispensaries or provisionaries, whatever they call themselves now, that says supports the black community. What generally does that mean when it's posted? Is there a social equity programs in place?
Yeah, there is. Well, it's not. It gets funding occasionally, and there is a social equity program that gives a little recognition to the businesses that go out of their way to incorporate practices, to bring in a diverse workforce. There's many different things you can do. You can donate to certain groups and organizations. Different actions the stores could take to help out communities and things like that. And you can get recognized for your level of social equity participation. There's also deals if you have more than 50% minority owned businesses, there's better entry fees and things like that. And there is a black community that's strong in the cannabis side of stuff, and they do try to support those who also kind of support social equity programs and stuff. So that is, when it says we support the black community, that's going to be appealing to a lot of people.
When I first went to Michigan, and I was actually on the way to the DNC in 2024, and I looked in weed maps what the Chicago prices were, and they were basically what we pay in Florida on our medical side. And I was like, nah, I'm not paying $80 for an eighth. So I went to Primitive, and that's owned by a former Detroit Lion, Calvin Johnson. And I just, the Michigan just model just struck me as so amazing as a consumer, to walk in with $60 and walk out with like a brown grocery bag full of stuff was just the greatest experience I have ever had as a consumer. I've been to Colorado, I've been to Maine, Maryland, even the gray market in DC, but just, to have $3 bags of edibles, fantastic, fucking fantastic, all the way around. So Jamie, I got to say, what you all have done at Michigan NORML and corralling all the activists and generating public opinion and holding strong over the past several years against the pushback that we see from the legal side, from the legislature, always trying to fuck stuff up. You've done an amazing job. So I just got to give you the kudos to that. And shout out to all the cannabis businesses that are getting it right in the state of Michigan.
Now, here's a question. With the prices as good as they are in the dispensaries, and Carlos, I think I have that one picture I sent you of what the flower prices were over at at Gatsby's. There we go. Yeah, there's the 3 tiers there. Their most expensive ounce, dudes, is $99 on the gold tier.
And it's usually a percentage off, even at that 99, they usually have some kind of deal where you can even get less than that over there.
Absolutely.
That's kicking the shit out the gray market in DC. I mean, that's amazing.
And that's deli flower, guys. It's not vacuum sealed flower that you can't see until after you paid for it and can't get your money back, which is exactly what they have here in Florida. I mean, I have one package here from a company called, I guess, Mixtape, but even the back of it has a clear section where you can actually see what you're actually buying before you actually buy it, and that's the sealed stuff. But like you said, they have what they call deli style over there, where you have all those jars, and the guy goes there with a pair of bamboo tongs and picks out the buds one by one and puts them into the bag and weighs them. So you're not going to get half a bag of shake. You're actually going to get the buds. And sometimes you can say, no, I don't want that one. I want that one. And he'll pick out the buds that you want. That's the kind of consumer confidence.
They also got those magnifying like little view things. And it's pretty cool. They'll put the bud under it. You can look at it. You feel like you're buying diamonds,
But I hate to be the devil's advocate, guys, but I mean, I look at something like this and I'm like, that place is not making any money. Is there? Yeah. Like, I mean, the consumer, great. If I'm shopping there, I'm excited. Right. But if I own that place, I'm probably scared that I'm not going to make rent. Right. Is there any concern like that at all, James?
Yeah, the market's struggling. That's why people are talking about the moratorium and taking big measures, and changing things in order to try to stabilize the market. Their big money interests would try to get rid of the caregiver system essentially, and anything they think is not contributory to their bottom line. And
what is your stance? Do you want to get those prices back up, or do you want to keep them up?
Well, I mean, I'm more on the side of consumers, so I'd like the best conditions for consumers. But if if the ability to keep on providing it goes away, then then prices do have to go up, on some level. But I want to see the market stabilize, but just not way of artificially screwing around with the law and hoping that something works. Meanwhile, people are shut out.
I gotta say, is it? Now that Ohio's legal, right? I mean, I guess folks coming from Indiana are probably the only other customers other than the natives in Michigan, right?
Yeah, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois all still come to Michigan quite a bit.
Okay,
better quality, lower prices.
Exactly.
And they're going to start cracking down on it now, but you used to be able to 2.5 ounces is the amount you can buy at one time. So
not 1 month, one time.
Right. So they would make it essentially so once you completed that 2.5 ounce transaction, then you do another one. And the onus is on the person that is leaving with more than they're allowed to possess at one time and not the store. But they're going to start cracking down on the stores for doing that. Now, from what I understand anyway, from a couple of meetings from a month or so ago, I don't know what actually has been put into place, but those border stores really benefit and do really well as a result of that. Whole thing, but a lot of other stores in the state are struggling. There are a few good locations here and there, and some people that have the system down pretty well, and good relationships with people for pricing and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a struggling market, and something has to shake out. But what happens ultimately, I think what would happen if there's no artificial change in law or anything like that, like the moratorium, the ability to sustain for many people, and it's already started happening, starts waning, and then some people drop out. and it doesn't look that inviting for new people to come in, and then the market stabilizes like that. And then the pendulum swings back and forth. That's what's happened in other states, and that's what could happen here. But
man, I just feel like there's no better example of what's wrong with America right now than the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
I mean, we're supposed to be this place of free business and free competition. And, you know, you look at a place like Florida and, you know, it's stacked so heavy against the consumer, you know, and so in towards the business side of things, that things are like on one side of the pendulum. Yeah. And I think like Michigan's on the other side of the fucking pendulum.
It's ironic because it's the big money interests and the dollar signs in their eyes and stuff. They got the thing rolling in the first place, that some people were like, all right, let's take this through the legislature and get something going because we're going to make all the money off of it.
Yeah.
You know, so we needed that a little bit to get it started. But yeah, the idea for the corporations is to incorporate it into the corporatocracy and just make it another revenue generator for them and not other people. But they don't understand, you know, it's quite obvious when people don't understand the history of cannabis, the culture, the nature of the plant, they make bad decisions about cannabis because of that. And you see it all the time.
That's exactly how Florida got started. You know, a handful of nursery men in Florida and folks who had citrus that was tanking, you know, because of the citrus viruses and just climate change. They got a few legislators. At the time, it was actually Matt Gaetz when he was in the Florida legislature, and they got him to push through a bill that only allowed for 5 licenses in the state that had to be completely, totally vertically integrated. And you had to have a nursery license for 30 contiguous years in Florida to originally qualify. And when they started digging through it, and, you know, there were court challenges, people were saying it wasn't fair. All in all, they found out it wasn't. You know, if you go back far enough, Black people weren't allowed to have nursery licenses in Florida. And then, 5 licenses for the entire state didn't work out when they figured out the process was rigged. So we ended up through different court cases suing. The market expanded to a little over 20. And then they said, every 100,000 patients, there's supposed to be, 5 new licenses. So right now in Florida, there should be upwards of close to 50 different MMTCs, and that's not what we have. What we do have is those a few that got the original jump, like True Leaf and Curaleaf, have market saturation where they have over 130 plus locations. And they're getting their investors and stuff to try and make their money in the margins, and they're betting the house essentially on this adult use initiative passing. And then they're trying to also throw money towards Trump to get him to push the rescheduling through and move it to Schedule 3. And the problem with that is that if we go to Schedule 3, and I've read Paul Armentano's research on this at National NORML office, is that you're essentially still going to keep it illegal, but you're going to allow big pharma essentially to take over. And I foresee the writing on the wall is that these big cannabis companies that have cornered these markets are going to sell their stakes to Pfizer and to Merck and to Kaiser, and this, then we're going to have real big pharma-led cannabis. And I mean, how does that leave us as consumers? Because I mean, they can't even get dick pills right.
My personal opinion, I don't think Trump is going to do it. I don't think he has any incentive to actually do it, other than just to distract from Epstein for a little while. But I seriously do not see our government actually doing anything than what they've already been doing, is like dragging their feet on research scheduling and not even really considering descheduling. Jamie, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I still view kind of the moving to Schedule 3 as an incremental positive. But with this particular administration, if they did it, I would then be concerned that it's a tee up for there to be federal enforcement again and for more federal control specifically. But otherwise, it's Schedule 1 now, so it goes to a less schedule. Yes, it allows for more participation, but it shouldn't take away what already exists. It's up to how the feds want to treat it, and they've been laying off states. But if they decide they don't want to do that anymore in conjunction with the Schedule 3 thing, then I would be very concerned.
And right now they have the DEA now taking over as the police chief of DC.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not involved in going back and doing the work on trying to do the rescheduling, which would go across his desk, basically. And that's one of those things that, like you said, they dragged it out from the previous administration. It'll probably die in this administration because I don't see it moving forward at all. I see it just as a red herring. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening, descheduling or rescheduling at this point in time.
Yeah.
I hold more
Neither do I.
hope that the States Act will go through.
Well, you know, it's really to be found in who an administration appoints and what are their personal views and public political views on cannabis. You know, if you put a prohibitionist in charge of the FDA, and you put a prohibitionist in charge of the Department of Justice, you put a prohibitionist in the head of the DEA. In what world does anybody think that all of a sudden you're gonna have folks that are be given opinions and views that are actually going to be pro legalization?
I think it's much simpler than this. I think it's just who's got more money, right? I think this is a sign that corporate cannabis has enough money for the president to be like, you know what, maybe we could check it out, you know, but that's it.
And it comes at a time when there's distractions needed.
The prohibition, yeah, exactly. The prohibitionists have way too much money. They're gonna come in now that they've heard Trump say, yeah, we'll check it out, and they're gonna be like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And that's it. That's gonna be it.
Well, here's a take, right? And I've brought it up in previous shows. When they run out of people to deport, and they run out of people to put in these cages and send them to other countries, those private prisons are still going to be there, and they're still owned by Geo Group. They're still owned by Core Civic. They're still owned by these major companies who get contracts with the feds to put people in those cages. They're going to go back to putting us as cannabis consumers in these cages because they need to keep up with their contracts and their profit motives. And as it's been said, they have way more money than corporate cannabis. In fact, they're making boatloads of money right now, you know, in a time where, as you can see, corporate cannabis is struggling.
I've heard from a reliable source that at this point, THCA is no longer an issue with the Department of Agriculture. Now, police in Florida are looking for packaging that says THCA. They're handling it like black market cannabis. They're making arrests. I think Smokey Jones was one of the first places to get raided for this, but now it's all over the state. You know, the people are going to jail for federally legal hemp. Right.
There's some friends down there in Key West. I think maybe in March or April, maybe May, just a few months ago, got entangled in a encounter with police, and they found a bunch of cannabis, and they're now charged with a couple of felonies, resisting arrest, all this other stuff. I think it was a bad stop to begin with, and been trying to help from up here. As far as them being able to challenge this.
How big is the gray market or the legacy market in Michigan now that you've had adult use for a couple of years?
It's been affected, but there's still like these pop-up events that take place where a lot of smaller growers get together informally and people know about it. And there's other plant medicines there too, usually, and they're very cool. And sometimes they're more formal than others, but it still happens, just not as nearly as much. It's really convenient for people to get good enough cannabis for really cheap, near their house quite often. And
let's take a look at the numbers. Right now in Florida, in 2024, we broke the 2 billion mark on a strictly medicinal market, making it the largest medicinal market in the country. And Florida is the third largest state by population. Michigan, however, is what, 16th? In the country right now, as far as population is concerned. Detroit is the 26th largest city. They've lost a lot of population over the last couple of decades. And yet in the state of Michigan in 2024, they surpassed $3 billion in sales. And having less population than they do here in Florida. In part, it's because of reciprocity. People come to visit Michigan and they purchase there and things of that sort. But just the basic population in Michigan is purchasing a hell of a lot more than they are here in Michigan, at least legally.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I know they were judging us against California early on, and we had these bigger numbers and all that kind of stuff too, but they didn't have the registry program in California, so it was harder to keep track really on that type of thing. But yeah, there's only 10 million people here, but the big numbers get made up. I think you're right by the fact that there's a lot of the population right near Michigan, and they come over to take advantage of the better laws for right now. Hopefully it encourages those other states to ramp it up, but you don't see it. You don't see the momentum, and Ohio's primed for it, but it's just not happening. It only takes a couple people in positions of decision-making capacity to slow the whole thing down.
Well, I mean, there's going to be a variety of different competency in the various dispensaries that you go to. I went to one dispensary. The woman admitted behind the counter she's actually a real estate agent. She just started doing this recently. I asked her a couple of questions she couldn't answer. She offered me a blunt that was harvested over a year and a half ago. I pointed that date out to her and said, I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. I said, go to the back of the stack, see what the price is on that one. And to the date was that one. And that they actually were not rotating their stock. The oldest stuff was still sitting in the front. The newest stuff is way in the back.
That's part of symptomatic of the very slow market. People try to hang on to that stuff for longer. At the place you mentioned, where I was mainly last year, a little bit this year, mainly last year, there was a rotation of time. So the bud would come in and it would be at its highest price. A few days later, if it wasn't really selling or if there was some left, it'd go to a lower price. So by 30 days, it was going to be purchased regardless because the price was so good on it that it would just keep moving through and it'd always be fresh in there. That's one thing I really liked about that place. That's hard to do too in this environment.
Well, that was one dispensary. Another dispensary I went to, I actually asked the woman behind the counter a medical question. I said, my wife has severe migraines. What do you have a particular cultivar that would do well for it? She said, well, this one is actually from a Hong Kong strain. And so therefore, this would do much better for you as far as migraine as some of the other ones. And she actually she directed me towards a cultivar that actually worked. I thought that was amazing, considering the fact that on the average, you usually come across somebody on the back of the counter who has like deer in the headlights kind of thing and says, well, this will get you high, which is all, I would guess that's pretty much everything here.
It's fire. It's fire. Yeah, it's usually. So some people though will say, hey, this will work, but like with cannabis and people's individual system and all that kind of stuff, it's still, you're taking a shot at it, but at least you're getting guided towards something that's been known to work for other people for it, and that's reasonable. And there are some people that want to have mandated education for bud tenders in Michigan. I don't like that, but I do like educated bud tenders. I think that's part of the competition. If your store has got more knowledgeable, better people to service the customers that come in and their needs, you should fare better in the market.
I think my favorite thing about Michigan was when I went there, I saw one dispensary here, and then there's a Taco Bell, and then another dispensary on the same right next to it, and then a Subway, and the dispensary here across the street, and then a Jimmy John's. It's like, this is America that we dreamed of. This is what it should be, and that's just, when you come from a state like Florida, that's just hardly ever the case. It'd be able to see something like that brought a little tear to my eye.
And not all localities allow something like that. Sometimes it's a border town. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Monroe is a border town, which is around the south there. And you go to one corner right there at one of the exits, and you'll find a dispensary on all four corners. And you go down to the next light, and there's another four different dispensaries on all four corners. So that kind of concentration, you don't see that in Florida. You don't see the ability to market. And that I see as, again, an offense to the free market. Like, for instance, this is your basic Florida packaging. It's white. It's boring as hell. It's got print far too small to be able to see. And it's sealed, and you can't tell what the hell is in there. And yet, in Florida, again, you can actually see the weed before you actually purchase it. And the products can be attractive enough to actually be marketed by the people who are trying to build their brand. I happen to like this one particular concentrate box I got here. The cultivar, by the way, is called, I don't know if you can see it, it's called Gary Satan, which is a religious thing, I suppose. I don't know. But this is an Anarchy brand sugar at 60% indica, 40% sativa. And if you look at the back here, it does mention the entire profile and the whole bit. So they actually do give out more information. I was a little concerned when I started to pull the QR codes and didn't see COAs, but I saw where you said that there were, actually consumer-facing QR codes, and more for industrial for stuff.
And they don't have to do it either, so you're not going to find them every single time either, because it's not mandated. But a lot of them just do it, because consumers want to see that information.
I mean, if you go to Las Vegas, they actually have to take the stickers that have all the information on them and throw them in the bag with everything else because they couldn't possibly fit it on the actual merchandise itself. That's why people were supposed to be going to QR codes. Now, Carlos, as we have had this argument before, is not a big fan of COAs. To quote Carlos, they're bullshit. But I
agree to a point about that too.
I agree to a point as well. I think Gary misrepresents my words quite a bit.
Talking.
But no, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, you take one plant and you take 4 buds off of the same plant and send them to 4 different facilities. You're going to get 4 different answers. And then you do the same thing with another plant and send it all to one facility, and you're going to get 4 different answers.
And if you're a Florida MMTC and you give a little bit of money to that lab, they'll give you lab results that look very favorable, even though they're actually testing that shit.
Yeah, we've had that problems here too, of course. And right now it's set up. A batch can be up to 50 pounds, and so somebody comes in from the lab and will take buds from around the batch, and then some lower branches, top branches, and the other side of the room, whatever, and then put it all together, and then a gram of that, all that stuff mixed together is what the official results are going to be. So if you care about like the composition of THC, for example, it's going to change because you're getting different areas where the composition is different. Yeah. And it also doesn't really matter, but a lot of people are very concerned about it regardless. And
it doesn't matter at all. Right. Yep.
So, but to know that it doesn't have pesticides, heavy metals and stuff like that, that's good. That's the way to go.
And the latest thing, the moisture content thing, like this is just another thing to like try to fucking make the business harder for the people that are trying to do the right thing. Yep. Okay. If I want to know if there were any pests or pesticides. I want to know if there was any harmful fertilizers. I want to know if there was too much lead in the soil, if it was grown in, a shitty fucking soil. Mm-hmm. But it's too much THC in it. I mean, come on. Like too much. Like what are you
anyway? Like even if you did achieve 40% THC or whatever in flower, that just means there's a bunch of other stuff that's not represented there now. Even if you were able to engineer that, it doesn't make it necessarily any better.
Yeah.
Well,
it's marketing.
When I look at what's been said around consumer-facing information, I actually kind of like the whole throw it in the bag approach. Because that's what they do at CVS. You go pick up a prescription at CVS, they throw they staple it to the bag, and most people don't even read this long thing of side effects and conditions and how to take it. And I just think, again, as consumers, we want what we want, and it's up to the consumer to be educated on it.
It feels like this type of rhetoric goes into the play of like, oh, weed nowadays is way different than it was back in the 70s. It's so dangerous nowadays. You can take a toke off a joint and then freak the fuck out. And like that, there's a lot of bullshit.
Propaganda.
That's exactly what Harry Anslinger was saying back in the 30s, right?
And it's all culminating now. It's like you're seeing prohibitionists have like all these new lines and like all these new talking points. And it comes from shit like, oh, you have to make sure you have a proper COA with proper cannabinoid testing in there because these things can be dangerous. No, they're fucking not. When I was out in California working in a dispensary, we didn't give a shit about no fucking COAs, right? We wanted to make sure there was no mold in our bud. But like we didn't care about THC percentages. We wanted to make sure that we were giving good product to the market, right? And that was it.
Yeah. We shouldn't really even care about the labels of sativa and indica either.
I agree.
And so that's where the deli stores come in, and the good bud tenders allow people to kind of see what they're connected with when they're smelling it and checking it out and stuff. And that's kind of that's a fair enough sign that it could be something that their system would want to work with and stuff like that. So that's what we rely on more, is the trying to tell people how to like put themselves through the ultimate experience of, or ultimate experiment of deciding which things and when work better for them. And the more information that you have on them, if you can hit the QR code and get the list of terpenes and that type of stuff, then the more you can put together what's working for you. You know, there's so much more to it than sativa, indica, and THC percentage. Those things don't even tell you anything.
Allowing that deli style, I like that way of referring to it. I've never heard it that way. You know, with our hemp flower here in Chillum, you know, we do that. We have big jars and we open it up. And I mean, the deli style, it's allowing for that, shows that the Michigan system is a lot more towards, you know, the business side of things. Because I mean, all of this is really like business tactics, right? You put a jar under somebody's nose and you smell that smell, right? It's going to be a lot harder for you to walk out of that dispensary without buying it. You know, it's true. And, you know,
but I think consumers prefer that, though, regardless of the businesses.
Yeah, well, that's why I think consumers really. Gary, look at Gary's face when he was talking about it. You know, consumers love that. Consumers love the whole experience. It becomes this experience where all my senses are you know, set firing into my brain. You know what I mean? I can smell it. I can see it. I can look at the crystals under a microscope, and you know, it becomes this great thing. And it becomes really harder to leave the dispensary without buying that bud. I think there's more information you receive from that than looking at a fucking piece of paper that says 35%, 25%.
You got to use it. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Or be really familiar with what works with you, and you know how to capture that, but not so many.
There's a lot of reasons I knew I was not in a Florida dispensary. For one is I saw this product right here, and I said, "Oh, you've got something called Mojo." And he said, "No, it's Mojo." I said, "Not if you're in Miami, it's Mojo." So, obviously, I was wrong there, but it's not white packaging. It's gorgeous. It's got great metallic into it, and the product, which is THC doubled fudge truffle chocolate drops, sounds absolutely fantastic. But just getting a white package, which you don't know what the hell is in there, you don't know how long it's actually was made in some cases, because you can't even see the damn thing. Obviously, we've got so much farther to go. I'm wondering from you, as we start to wrap this up today, you said you've got some things that need to be fixed in Michigan. What do you think are the best parts about Michigan's product program right now, and what things got to get fixed?
Wow. Okay. Well, the fact that we do have individual rights that go along with the commercial side of stuff helps to tolerate issues with the commercial side of stuff, because there's typically something to fall back onto for a lot of people. Not everybody, but for a lot of people. And we have that, and we've been able to protect that so far, even in spite of some big money interests trying to disrupt it. We still have the big money interests attempting to artificially grab more market share by hurting other aspects of our program. There's a push by a lab to start roadside swab testing and include cannabis on the list of things that they want to test for. And in Michigan, you're allowed to have internal possession. If you're a patient or if you're over 21, you can possess cannabis. So the fact that it would be noted that it's in your system during any kind of a traffic scenario really shouldn't mean anything. But according to this language, you can actually base the arrest on it. And that's just such a backwards dive for where we've come. Right now, in order for somebody to, you know, be concerned about being pulled over, they have to actually be doing something that, you know, warrants an investigation. And then they will get the proper consequence for whatever, you know, is determined that was going on. But now, as it is, based on very ambiguous and very loose language, the cop can just decide that they need to check things out with this roadside swab test. And so we're fighting against that right now. And there are some people that take it really seriously. It's already passed through the House in the state. So we have that issue. We have the issue of the moratorium coming up. Like, in fairness to the businesses, many businesses think that it's going to be a win for them and it will stabilize the market. so that they have great intentions and stuff, but the reality is it hasn't worked in other states, particularly Oregon. And the result has been locking in a lot of the businesses that we don't particularly care for to be there and have that kind of, control over things anyway. We have the issue of the free speech stuff with the DIAG, as I brought up earlier. They're, just talking about it, trying to say that that's somehow supporting a Schedule I drug illegally. That's a freedom of speech issue. So, I mean, I hope I sound like I'm not bitching too much, particularly when I want to compare systems. I know that we have it pretty good in Michigan, but it's trying to be taken away constantly by other interests, and there's still a lot of room for improvement. And so we do recognize it's really good for me to be able to come on a show like this and get this kind of perspective and be able to appreciate what we have here a little bit. But a lot of us are still caught up in trying to make it better and trying to protect it. And then, I just think there's this overall, and I don't know what it is, but there's a different consciousness in the air, and people feel a lot more comfortable again, giving other people a bunch of shit for stuff like talking about it, and that type of stuff. So I was just at a DPA, Drug Policy Alliance meeting. The next time they have their big seminar is going to be in Detroit. Last time it was in Phoenix. And the organizers there were making it clear to us, we're operating under a different set of circumstances now than we were just a year ago.
They here in the state of Florida, they have made the Florida Highway Patrol the #1 immigration authority in the state of Florida, as far as pulling people over, and in some cases throwing them into Alligator Alcatraz, which is our nice little concentration camp they have in the middle of the swamps over there. And there's kids actually who have been incarcerated over there who were actually sitting as a passenger in cars where the driver had a medical card, but the product he had in the car didn't have his name on it, and they could actually smell cannabis in the car. So they decided, oh, look, here's a good reason why we could take all these brown folks and throw them into the deportation system and see if they stick to the situation. So we have that going on here in the state of Florida, which is really difficult.
Right.
We also are dealing with, we're still trying to keep people from losing their kids when they have medical, when the parents have medical cards and they're using it, and the Department of Children and Families comes into the house and tries to take their kids away. That's going on right now. We have a bill for that. We have a home grow bill. We're still trying to get that to go through the state legislature. We even talk about Second Amendment rights as far as our bill is concerned, better choice in labeling so that we know exactly what the heck is going on. So all these things are still on our plate right now. We have a lot more, unfortunately, than you do, although your stuff is important too. I see eventually we'll get to the nexus where we're all on the same page, but as this crazy quilt of laws goes on in this country, I see Michigan still as a shining light compared to other states that I've seen. Oregon's been up and down. Oklahoma's been up and down. Denver, at one point in time, they had excise tax upwards of 36%. Yeah. Michigan still, by the way, is 16%, which is good. I think Denver is down now.
10% excise, 6% regular sales tax. That's the whole 16. Yeah.
I mean, in Maryland, it went up from 9 to 15 because there's a budget crunch.
That 9 is awesome, though. Yeah, the governor's proposing an extra 32% tax on wholesale transfers here in Michigan right now. It's another thing that we're fighting against.
Well, and the federal government is contributing a lot to these increases in state level cannabis taxes. As the feds are pushing less and less money to the states are now looking to raise revenue without raising income taxes and trying not to raise business taxes. So they'll pass on taxes and fees to consumers, whether it's your license or getting your emissions inspected or your cannabis. And I mean, that's really where we're seeing right now all across the country.
They need to fix the roads, and they think that the only tax that they get right now it's a Democratic governor, Democratic Senate, Republican House, and the Democrats, the governor thinks that the cannabis tax is the one they can get the Republicans to go along with them. The problem is they actually did that
to fix those roads for a while. I can tell you for a fact it was a pretty bumpy ride on the Chrysler. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things. Some of the excise tax already goes toward roads, and just last quarter there was like $115 million just for roads that came out of the cannabis market for that. And such a tax, things are already really tough right now. And people aren't even paying their bills when they're buying a lot of times from cultivators, and it's becoming a big deal. To add on a third cost, to everything that's already a struggle, it would just decimate the market, and they would not see the revenue generation that they're estimating. They're estimating it on things staying the same, but just adding this tax onto it. It's literally stupid,
Now you do have more public use, public access than we do here in Florida. Here in Florida, you cannot smoke anywhere outside of your own home, or if the landlord allows you to, kind of situation.
Gary, it gets worse though. This new amendment that we have will actually put a ban in the Florida Constitution on public smoking. So we're going to literally have to change the Constitution of Florida.
What's the consequence, though?
Say again?
You can't do it here either, but it's a civil infraction.
Oh, see, yeah, that's going to be another reason to create probable cause and to mess with people. You're smoking. Let me see that. Where's your dispensary certificate? I saw a TikTok video of a trooper pull a guy over. He's like, "Is it in the original dispensary packaging?" The guy's like, "No." Well, then you're fucked. You're going to jail. That's literally what the trooper said.
But in Michigan, they do have laws governing consumption lounges.
Yeah, but the model, nobody's broken the code on the model yet to keep them sustainable. I was involved with one of the first ones, and it was right next to a dispensary too. So the idea was people would get their cannabis from there and then be able to come over and be able to use it. Or you can have it delivered there too, from any local place that was delivered there. And there's food in there and coffee and stuff and games and some music and all that kind of stuff, but it just didn't take off. And
one of my favorite models.
Bud's place did say he wanted to say hi to you, because I guess you guys met up in Vegas. Bud's place being there at the franchise of consumption lounges on Silverstein. But anyways,
Gary, I was going to add one of my favorite consumption lounge models. I recall back in 2000 and I'm going to say it was 14. I went out to Colorado, and there was this place in Colorado Springs called the Lazy Lion. Now, granted, they probably were not doing anything above board because they eventually shut them down. But, it was a membership thing. You paid your membership fee, you got in, and then, they would donate the bud to you, and then you would make a donation back, essentially in cash. And they had a dab bar, they had flour. And I mean, obviously they were jumping through 1,000,001 hoops. They obviously got shut down. But I just thought that was cool, that the consumption lounge should be also the place where you can buy product. This whole idea that you have to go buy it somewhere else, transport it, take it down the street, and then consume it in another place just seems ludicrous in so many ways as a cannabis consumer.
Well, for those people who watch the Leguizamo Takes America, he did a show on Denver and talked about a consumption lounge there where you actually had to go out to a food truck to get something to eat. You couldn't actually get it inside the consumption lounge. So that was, I guess, a problem with their model there. We know
they had munchies at the one I went to. They had Doritos and stuff. Nothing serious.
There's a couple places that are locally tolerated that aren't part of the direct, Michigan formal system, where you can go in and consistently get cannabis, mainly from caregivers, and use it right there. And they have food and a lot of times entertainment and stuff like that. In the Flint area, there's a couple places there, Vehicle City and Genesee County Compassion Club. And they kind of what you're describing are very cool, but they're outside of the system and they're just locally tolerated.
So wait, I want to jump in real quick. Flint still doesn't have clean water, but they want to raise weed taxes. Help me out with that.
Well, Flint almost, I just heard this yesterday, and I think I've been paying that much attention to it, almost has completed replacing all the lead pipes in the city with cleaner, newer pipes. That wasn't really the problem in the beginning, but regardless, that's still a good thing. It's still a good upgrade for the city, and that's almost done.
How long has it been? Has that process been?
Several years. I don't really remember the first year where it happened. We had Governor Schneider in office then. I want to say it's got to be, what was that, 7 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that. I really don't remember exactly the first year it happened. I did become part of a group, some of our cannabis groups, did stuff like got water and, bottled in water and brought it up there and had like a, spaghetti cook-off and whatever, and provided a bunch of food for people in the communities and stuff. And so did many other groups and organizations for a long time. But I just don't remember. That was now a few years ago. There was a lot of mistakes made, a lot of bad decisions, not treating that place really well. And there still should be way more fallout from it than there ever was. But that's also to be expected sometimes.
I just want to point out, I remember playing Sim City as a kid, and one of the scenarios you could play is how to revitalize Flint. So Flint's clearly been screwed up since before the year 2000 in our popular culture, you know?
Yeah, well, Roger and Me was, if you ever saw that movie, is a good window into, the downfall of that area and stuff like that after GM heavily invested in it. And, they created a bunch of jobs, a bunch of people moved there. They gave it a little revitalization, and then it all came down again. And it's interesting. But yeah, it's had a tough time over a lot of years. Still a really cool city in a lot of ways, though.
Jamie, before we wrap up, there was one reefer madness talking point that has come up in the past couple of years. And I just wanted to know, since you're on the ground in Michigan, is it a real thing for y'all? It's the Chinese triads running these illegal cannabis grows. I've read it on NPR. I've seen it in the MAGA outlets. It don't matter what spectrum of the policies, but the Chinese mafia is selling marijuana and they're poisoning Americans with it. And I just want to know, is that a real thing in Michigan?
I've heard that they were buying up a lot of land in Oklahoma, but I've never heard anything in Michigan. I've heard the cartel and the Russian mafia and all this other stuff are like investing in the system, but I haven't heard of anybody coming in. So we've been fortunate to keep out some of those places at least directly, because it's not an inviting place to come do business as with the model of being a huge operator and controlling most of everything. So.
It is like the Wu-Tang Clan is taking over the dude, I wonder what prohibitionists are going to be saying fucking 10 years from now, because this shit gets more and more entertaining.
It's going to be the robots, the clankers.
In the end, it's just cannabis, and everybody's trying to come up with new testing and different ways of fucking people with it, and like these, these minor distinctions. Your name wasn't on that label, or that's like my friends of mine in Florida. They got busted. That was one of the things.
Yeah.
Well, it was great visiting you guys over in Michigan. I had a chance to go to Kroger, load up on Faygo and Verner's, and I got a bumpy cake from Saunders over there.
Hey, celebrated mine and my brother's birthday last night. Bumpy cake, definitely part of that program. That's a standard.
If you're from Michigan, you guys, I can't. Sorry about that. I exclude everybody else out, but you got to know, you got to get an actual real Coney Island, not the kind they have over in Ohio, not that Gold Star shit like that. But it'll always be my home no matter where I am. And it was great to get a chance to visit you and see how great things are going on there. And I hope that things get better each and every year for you. Oh. Maybe we could do a mutual event between your NORML and our NORML one of these days.
A couple of our guys are just starting a show. I haven't really checked it out yet or anything. They're on the board with me and decided they wanted to do a weekly thing or something. So if that starts taking off, it'll be have you guys on and let people know what's going on there more directly too.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Jamie, I sit on the national board of NORML now, and one of the things I've been pressing them is to get us a national chapter conference back together. Maybe I can get them to pull someone up in maybe Missouri. Everybody can meet halfway. We talked earlier about cannabis advertising. I thought that was cool to see billboards in Michigan and to see billboards in Missouri, because in Florida, there are no billboards. There's no advertising at all for cannabis. So just to see something that you can, hey, we got bud. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
One of our guys arranged to have Morgan Fox on a recent meeting and got a lot of good information on the federal lobbying and stuff like that. So really appreciate the work that National NORML's doing.
Yeah, shout out to Morgan, shout out to JM, shout out to Paul and Keith and Randy, just that team there, just keeping things going and pushing us through nationally and keeping everything coordinated. So, and with all of that, guys, Jamie, why don't you just, Carlos, make them big, give them a chance to wrap up, tell folks where he can, they can get involved with Michigan NORML, how they can reach out.
Well, we have the website. Some things are going to be changed on there over the course of the next few months, but it's still very functional for communication. Plus, I'm on all the standard social media stuff with my name, so people can just contact me directly as well. We work in coalition with some other groups, so depending on where somebody might be in their pursuit of cannabis reform, we could direct people where maybe some of their focus and energy could go that they feel more comfortable about, because it's a complex topic and a lot of stuff to do, that's for sure. But so NORML likes to work in coalition with others too. But yeah, please, if anybody has interest in Michigan, wants to know more about it, wants to help out in any ways, contact us through the site or contact me directly.
And my heart goes out to Motor City NORML, I guess, is doing some rebranding and restarting right now.
It's us,
So,
yeah.
More power to you. If you need a mouth to make it big for you, I'm over here too.
Right on. Okay, we have a good group, but we're always looking to have some help. And like, we really appreciated Morgan Fox the other night, so like we can see working with you guys and exchanging ideas and learning what's going on around.
And if you're an executive director of one of our great NORML chapters across the country right now, feel free to contact us. We'll get you on. We'll talk. We're talking about you, Austin, Texas. Absolutely, because you guys have been through shit this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also want to just again recognize the amazing just legacy of cannabis activism coming out of Michigan. We mentioned earlier about John Sinclair. I mean, Jamie has him there on his shirt. Sinclair was a poet, a musician, a marijuana law reform advocate. And, they sentenced that guy to 10 years in 1969 for 2 cannabis cigarettes. And I mean, that's just wow to me. And I mean, they even had free John Sinclair rallies with John Lennon and Stevie Wonder, Bob Seger in 71 in Ann Arbor. And I mean, Keith Stropp talks about, how him and John, travel college campuses in the 70s to try and get things moving. And so again, there's been a great history of activism coming out of Michigan. Jamie, you're a part of that legacy. It was said earlier, shout out to some of the other great activists coming out of Michigan. Rest in peace, John Sinclair, Rory Gould, and just thank you for being a part of that. It means a lot to see folks put themselves out there and try to make a difference.
Yeah, we'll really appreciate it, and also appreciate the work you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Well, with all that, Carlos, I think it's time for the news. So at the top of the news hour, I want to cover a subject that came up in today's show, and that was around traffic safety and cannabis consumption. And there is driving simulator data that has been published in the journal Traffic Injury Prevention. Researchers affiliated with the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus assessed simulated driving performance in a cohort of daily cannabis consumers, occasional consumers, and non-users. And daily users consumed either high-potency cannabis flower or concentrates containing on average 78% THC. Occasional consumers only inhaled cannabis flower. All consumers used cannabis for up to 15 minutes, and study participants drove on a computer simulated course 20 minutes following cannabis consumption, and once again 80 minutes later. And consistent with prior studies, daily consumers exhibited few changes in their psychomotor performance compared to controls, compared to non-users. Specifically, daily consumers demonstrated improvements in standard deviation and lateral positioning following cannabis ingestion. Both daily and occasional cannabis consumers reduced their speed following cannabis use, whereas those in the non-user group typically increase their speed. Unlike daily users, occasional cannabis consumers exhibited minor detriments in their performance following cannabis inhalation. However, these changes were not statistically significant when they compared it to non-users. All in all, daily cannabis consumers exhibit few changes in their simulated driving performance compared to controls. This whole thing around, the THC concentrations in your mouth or your blood are indications of impaired driving are just not true, and that is consistent with other studies. These findings reaffirm that the presence of THC in your body is inconsistent and an inappropriate indicator in psychomotor impairment in cannabis consumers. So I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about that. And, other data that's recently come out, a federal survey according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, says that marijuana and teen use and marijuana use by young adults has remained unchanged over the past 4 years. So for all the legalization we've seen all around the country in the past 4 years, the agency's new report called Key Substance Use and Mental Health Indicators in the United States, results from the 2024 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, find no change in the rates of past year cannabis use by people ages 12 to 25. Self-reported marijuana use among those aged 26 and older has increased, but that is particularly among older adults. Shocker that people who are now getting older, millennials that are now in their 40s, Xers in their 50s, boomers in their 60s and 70s are utilizing cannabis to help with things like anxiety and depression around getting older and joint pain. So it's these numbers are not a shock. So when you hear prohibitionists always talk about what about the children, clearly the children are doing fine, and legalization is working. The kids are not becoming potheads. So that's important to look at. Now let's also talk about the DEA report coming out of 2024. The DEA seized over 5 million cannabis plants in 2024 and report nearly 6,000 marijuana-related arrests. And this is according to their annual data. Now, I do want to also say that the DEA data is not always complete, in the sense that certain states don't even report their data. So sometimes this is a little bit more harder to do, but let's go with what the data that they do have. The Domestic Cannabis Eradication Suppression Program statistical report says that federal agents and their partners confiscated approximately 5.3 million cultivated cannabis plants last year. That total is slightly below the figures reported by the agency for 2022, where they seized 5.7 million, and 2021, where they seized 5.5 million. The agency failed to publicly release seizure totals for 2023 in a timely manner and still has not provided data for that year. So I don't know what the hell the DEA was doing in 2023, but there we go. Of the 1,000 of GRU operations that were interdicted by the agency, the DEA characterized 15 of them as Chinese affiliated. So again, we talked about it earlier in the show about the reefer madness talking points that are coming from both left and right around illegal Chinese grows. And out of the thousands of grow operations, only 15 seem to be run by the Chinese organized crime syndicates. Now, between 2011 and 2020, marijuana crop seizures by the DEA and their partners fell nearly 33% before rising again in 2021 and 2022. Marijuana-related arrests by federal agents also declined sharply during this time period, from 8,500 in 2011 to fewer than 5,000 in 2020, before also rising again in 2021. For 2024, the agency reported making 5,764 marijuana-related arrests. These federal arrests are categorized separately from marijuana-related arrests made by state and local law enforcement. And in 2023, the last year for state-level arrest data is available. The FBI reported 217,150 arrests for marijuana violations. So, you know, all in all, these marijuana domestic eradication program, which actually started in California and Hawaii in 1979, has 35 states participating in the program currently out of the 50. And oh my God, they're wasting all this money to protect us from all this marijuana. Oh, great. What a great thing to spend with our tax dollars, right? So here we are, all in all. Now, on the flip side of things, let's talk about something positive. Delaware rolled out their adult use program, and their cannabis sales totaled nearly $1 million in the first weekend they rolled out the program. Licensed cannabis retailers in Delaware sold over 900,000, close to $1 million worth of marijuana products in the 3 days following the launch of adult use retail sales. The inaugural 3-day weekend from Friday to Sunday had combined sales of adult and medical use that was over 900,000. And that is a measurable increase in sales that demonstrate the robust demand and successful market launch. The adult use sales totaled over $625,000 and generated $93,750 in tax revenue. And, you know, Delaware has been something that's been interesting because adult use sales began last Friday, but, you know, it was 28 months from the time the lawmakers actually approved the legislation to the time they actually launched the sales in the market, well over 2 years. And despite the delay, the Democratic Governor Matt Meyer hailed the rollout and said that it was, Delaware's first weekend of adult use sales. They show that the state is ready and eager and well regulated for a responsible market. Again, Delaware, tiny state, interested to see how all that's going to shake up. Their state auditor estimates adult use sales will generate $43 million in annual tax revenues. So we'll see if that is, pie in the sky numbers, if that's wishful thinking, or if that pans out. We'll see how it goes. We talked a little bit today about how market saturation and price drops have definitely affected things. Now, important federal news that I want to talk about, and we're actually going to have a future show on. Trump says cannabis rescheduling decision is forthcoming. President Donald Trump affirmed at a news conference on Monday that his administration is looking at federally reclassifying cannabis, and it would make a determination over the next few weeks. He said that the subject is complicated, while acknowledging that he's hearing great things about cannabis's medical utility. And he also said that he's heard bad things that have to do with just about everything else about marijuana. The president's remarks were in response to a question from a news reporter, and they are his first public statements about cannabis policy since winning re-election. The Biden administration initiated the regulatory process to review cannabis's classification in late 2022, and this marked the fifth time that an administrative petition to remove cannabis from Schedule 1 has been filed since 1970, but the first time that the White House had ever led such an effort. The following year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommended that the DEA reclassify cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. The DEA then called for hearings on the matter, which were scheduled to begin earlier this year, and those hearings were stayed following allegations the DEA had engaged in inappropriate and biased acts that warranted their disqualifications from the proceedings. There have been no further movement on the matter since January, since they canceled those hearings. In a Truth Social post back in September, Trump wrote, "As president, we will continue to focus on the research to unlock the medical uses of marijuana to a Schedule 3 drug and work with Congress to pass common sense laws, including safe banking for state-authorized companies and supporting states' rights to pass marijuana laws." So, all in all, the DEA is an agency since its inception that has been looking to validate its budget. And when it saw that it was going to take a budget hit over its marijuana enforcement when we move it out of a Schedule 1, obviously they sabotaged the whole proceedings and they screwed it all up. Also, I want to say that the last time we had rescheduling hearings, it was found by a DEA administrative judge that cannabis does not belong in Schedule 1. NORML helped push that in the 70s. It took them close to a decade to actually get the ruling, and then NORML was not certified as a party for this last round that has been sabotaged by the DEA. So hopefully, if the Trump administration does do hearings and such, NORML can be a part of that. NORML was instrumental in pushing that through back in the 70s and getting that ruling in the 80s that said cannabis shouldn't be Schedule 1. Obviously, the agency just ignored all that data. And let's talk about normal news as we wrap up. This is the 21st century. Scammers are everywhere. I mean, even during the show, I got a text message that said that, I have an unpaid parking ticket in Florida, and if I don't pay it, they'll suspend my license. Click on the link. Obviously, it's not true. NORML's Facebook page actually got hacked over the past couple weeks. It started spamming celebrity news. It was definitely something that was a major concern. We lost tens of thousands of followers. So if and it was back on July 31st when it got compromised. It took Meta close to 2 weeks to sort everything out and get it situated. Like I said, shout out to JM and Morgan for making sure that we got things squared away and fixed. National NORML has close to 1 million followers on its Facebook page, and losing so many folks after getting hacked and spammed it was a hard loss. So if you're watching this, like and subscribe. Go to Facebook, go to National NORML, go to Instagram, click like, and also go to Suncoast NORML's Facebook page. Go ahead and shoot us a like. If you're watching this episode right now on YouTube or another channel, hit like, hit subscribe, share and comment, and jump into rotation with us each and every Sunday. We do our best to give you great and amazing guests, like today with Jamie from Michigan NORML. If go back and watch some of our past episodes, we've had some great folks in the cannabis industry. We've had folks that are members of Congress. We've had folks running for governor of Florida. I mean, we've had folks on the left side of the aisle and the right side of the aisle. We've had sponsors of major cannabis legislation in Congress on the show. And each and every week, we're going to continue to strive to give you more and more. But we can't do that without your support. It just takes a couple of seconds to hit that like button, to go ahead and become a subscriber to the channel. And it makes all the world of difference for us to be able to continue to make the algorithm work and present this amazing news for you each and every week. And with all of that, Carlos, that's the NORML news.
So one thing I noticed about the NORML Facebook page getting hacked, and this just goes to show how shitty Meta is, right? Is that I realized that NORML lost a lot of followers, and I'm sure they did. People were following
over 20,000.
NORML people were following that page to get their cannabis information.
Yeah.
I started following that page back in fucking when I first started going to college. But I noticed that the post engagements were much higher for celebrity news than it ever was for cannabis news. So I was hoping it would help NORML out a little bit, but I guess it didn't. And
is Zuck a cannabis user? I just want to know, because like that's a really shitty thing to do, to be a pothead and then deprioritize cannabis on the algorithm.
I don't know if he ever was. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember it was a great place to share cannabis information back when it first came out.
Oh yeah, I mean, hell, that's how we got our following on Suncoast NORML when we started our page in 2014.
And there's another thing too, like fucking driving while high. I noticed that a lot of the people that work for me do not like to drive while high, and as a matter of fact, they're very, very much afraid of it. But like I think there's a generational thing, right? Because I grew up in a household that was pretty restrictive when it came to at least cannabis use, right? So my car was the only place that I could truly like be free. It's not like I could smoke in the backyard or anything. So I mean, I was driving around smoking weed. So I got used to smoking and driving while high. But now, these people have they're changed laws and shit. And I think I think they're very responsible when it comes to their cannabis use.
Yeah,
So
Carlos is clear.
On blocks that you were smoking in, right?
What?
It was actually rolling.
Huh?
You didn't have a car like on blocks on the front lawn that you were smoking in?
No, I was driving around.
Basically,
I was committing fucking DUIs all the time. So I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
I mean, Gen Xers and millennials are the last generation to hotbox.
The idea was roll the blunt before we hit the highway, so we could really fly once we hit the highway.
I mean, Carlos, you're not wrong. I remember being in college, and it's like, oh, we're going on a road trip to Alabama. Oh, that's an 8-blunt trip. That's how we would measure, how long of a trip it was. Oh, we're going to Colorado. Oh, that's a 27-blunt trip.
But this shows how like the work that we've done over the years kind of has changed the game a little bit, and now there's like a different approach to cannabis. And I'm not saying that people, I think it's great that the younger generation doesn't like to drive while they're high. I think that's perfectly great.
Yeah, you shouldn't operate heavy machinery when you're impaired. But again,
I will admit it, I was wrong smoking weed on the highway.
So I mean, the craziest thing I think I've seen in recently watching like cannabis documentaries was seeing a guy dab while he's driving down the highway. Bro, he's driving with his knees. He's got the rig in this hand, blowtorch in this hand, no hand on the steering wheel. Puts the blowtorch down, takes a dab to. I'm like,
blowtorch and everything. I can't do that.
This is why Musk developed self-driving cars.
Probably, Gary. Probably self-driving,
especially for him.
Or so he could dab while he's driving, right?
Well, guys, that green car is actually my parents rolling up.
Oh, well, shout out to Mommy and Poppy.
I don't know if you guys want to chit chat a little bit more, but I think this is a good time to end the show.
No, we got to get going.
Yeah. Oh, peace out. Jamie, thanks again. Thanks for sticking around for the news. Gary, Carlos, we'll catch you next week in the rotation. And everybody, hit that like and subscribe. Make sure you go to suncoastnormal.org. We got some amazing events coming up this fall. So be on the lookout for those.
Bye. Love you guys.